Hello and welcome to another Buzzwordathon pick. The prompt for this month is nature words, because it's April. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to pick something from the middle grade section. I have been meaning to pick up some middle grade books for a while because I am potentially reworking the first draft of a novel that I did into a middle grade book, and it makes sense to actually do some research about what's out there, what middle grade books are like, how their writing and their plotting is different, and just getting a feel for it, because there is obviously so much more to writing a middle grade book than just having preteen characters. So I picked Hedgewitch by Skye McKenna, the word hedge being the nature word in this scenario. Obviously I am now wearing my Hedgewitch t-shirt from Disturbia, and I've got my spooky cardigan on, and we are just going to have a cozy day of reading a middle grade book. It is quite chunky, but it is also helpfully spaced. There are, ooh, that's a cool picture. And it's middle grade, so I'm hoping it's going to be quite straightforward to read. I am excited to just sit down and get cozy. I'm hoping this is going to be the sort of book that I would have loved when I was reading middle grade, because obviously that is going to be the sort of book that I want to emulate and I want to write. I'm just hoping for something that's like easy to read, that gives me good vibes, and is just quite chill and maybe quite happy and makes me feel good. So I'm hoping this is it. I've had a lot of DNFs recently, which you will see if you watch my tarot TBR video that's coming out, and I could really do with something that is just easy and I can just sit down and read it in one sitting. If I could read this in one sitting, I'd be really pleased. That would make me happy. But yes, this is my buzzword book for April, so let's see what I think of it. Just realised I completely forgot to tell you what the story is about. So the blurb reads, Cassie Morgan has run away. After 7 years spent waiting for her mother to return, she flees her dreary boarding school and sets out to find her. But the world outside her school is full of hidden magic, and children have been going missing. With the help of a talking cat and a flying broom, Cassie escapes to the enchanted village of Hedgeley. There she will begin her training in the practical skills of witchcraft with the Hedgewitch, who watches over the hedge, the vast forest that marks the border between England and Fairy. So this is hitting on like so many buzzwords and like tropes and things that I love. I love reading about a boarding school because I went to a boarding school, so I like seeing how different people write that in books. Obviously I love magic. Obviously, talking cat, fantastic. Flying broom, we're leaning into like classical depictions of witches here. Training under a hedge witch and watching over the border between England and Fairy. Like, I feel like I'm just going to love this book. Also, Cassie Morgan is a cracking name. I enjoy that a lot. Oh, and it's got a really nice... That's a good map. That's a good map. Look at the cat in the chapter picture. That's cute. More people should illustrate their chapter headings. I'm putting that out there now. Beneath the starlight. Two things just from the first 2 pages. First off, she is hiding in a broom closet with her favourite book, which fair enough, that's a whole vibe, and she is absolutely correct in you need to know where all the good hiding places are in a boarding school, because sometimes you just need to get away from other people, and I understand that viscerally. And secondly, she really likes fairy tales. Yeah, mood, love it. So she looked them up in her library, and her library has a paranatural and legendary phenomena section. I'm fairly sure mine didn't go beyond biographies, so I'm very jealous of the extent of the content in her school library. That seems too good to be true, frankly. I know July is gone. You make me feel at home in the neon glow. As the leaves change color, I dive in. I will say, I think tapioca pudding is something that's like a stereotype of boarding schools. I can honestly say, in the 2 years that I went to a boarding school, I never even saw tapioca pudding. I'm not even convinced I know what it is. I think the only use of tapioca that I'm aware of is those balls in bubble tea, I think. But it doesn't sound fun, so I understand why she's trying to avoid it. She has a secret library under a loose panel in the floorboards beneath her bed. I like this girl.
You're there, ease my mind. Like stars that never die. You and I will shine during the darkest times. As the leaves change color, I dive into you. When summer's fading, there's nothing to do but bask in the glory of the winter sun. Maybe this is the season of love. As the leaves change color.
I'm nearly 100 pages in. I'm really enjoying this book. This is exactly the sort of book that I thought this was going to be. It has given me everything I wanted. I'm very, very pleased. The boarding school, they went with the sort of typical dreary, miserable stereotype of a boarding school, which I can understand. I did not have a dreary, miserable time at boarding school, so I kind of don't love those depictions, but I understand that not everybody enjoys it. They had the usual. They had the buddies, they had the shitty food, they had the being locked in at night, comparing it to a prison, constantly finding places to hide and read, which is super relatable. So she's escaped. Her mother has been declared officially dead because she's been missing for 7 years. And Cassie is obviously not very happy about this, doesn't understand why that's a thing because, like, there's no real proof that her mother's dead. And one of the other girls from the school has gone missing. So police officers and a warden have shown up. So the wardens are a special ancient brand of the police, apparently. And Cassie overhears some conversations while she's hiding in a tree reading about how these children are basically being stolen by fairies. It's heavily implied that they are being stolen by fairies. And she meets the warden, and the warden's quite nice. She's called Renata. But when her mother is declared officially dead, the headmistress basically says, well, she's been declared dead. We don't have access to your mother's accounts anymore, and we don't take charity cases, so we're sending you to an orphanage. So Cassie, naturally, decides to run away and is chased by some goblin child kidnappers, meets a cat with a witch's broomstick, and they fly away to safety. And now they're on their way to Hedgeley because apparently the head witch there is her aunt. And no one's heard from her mother in a very long time, which is why she's never known that she's had a family. So we're leaning into a lot of middle grade tropes, but they're done well. I like these characters. The only thing I found alarming at the moment is that when she gets on the train to Hedgeley, another little girl and her mum gets on, and they're quite well off. And this little girl, Tabitha, just has a white bunny under her arm. And having owned rabbits in the past, the idea of getting on a train with a rabbit with no carrier and no bag or anything just makes me want to curl up and scream, because they are wriggly fuckers. I don't know if you've ever held a rabbit before, but if they don't like being held on the whole, and they're really motherfuckers when they want to be. So that's asking for disaster, frankly, but we shall see. I think she's going to crop up because this little girl says she's on her way to be an apprentice to this head witch that is suddenly Cassie's aunt, so I'm sure she's going to crop up again. We shall see. I am confused about what time period this is set in, because on the train they said that they were going past like old villages and bombed out houses, so maybe this is like post-World War or something like that. That might explain the tapioca pudding. Maybe I'm onto something there. And I had another thought, but it's gone. I'm really enjoying this book. Like, I'm nearly 100 pages in. This is not going to take me long to read at all. Also, the talking cat is called Montague, and I love him. So far, so very, very good. That was it, I remembered. So there is one point where she asks a teacher whether fairies are real because it comes up in a history class, and she gets laughed at and scoffed at and given detention for disrupting the class. But we have wardens exist specifically to look into sort of supernatural weird crimes, and this girl Tabitha openly tells her on the train that she's there to study with a head witch, and it's such a good thing that the head witch is there to protect the forest. So I'm confused where people stand on the concept of fairies. Like, do people believe in fairies? Is that a thing? Because I'm getting like really mixed messages on that front. On a completely separate note, she has now reached Hartwood Hall, which is where her Hedgewitch aunt lives, and can we please appreciate that there is a giant tree just in the middle of the hall and the staircase wraps around it. I love it. I love it so much. So my question about fairies has been answered. So in Hedgeley, everyone knows that they're real, and it's like there's a hob that runs the bookshop, and there's a water hag that lives in the river. Like, it's a perfectly normal part of life. But everyone else doesn't believe. So I think that's the setup we're working with. Also, I'd like to point out that the Hedgewitch runs a coven for the young girls who all want to be witches, which is essentially like they earn badges, they have to wear the right uniform, they play games, they have tasks, and it's basically like brownies, but it's a coven, so they're learning how to be witches, and I just really enjoy that. Skye McKenna is doing a really good job of making this location really like quintessentially British and cozy and magical, with all the different elements of like, there's a river running through the town, everything's made of old stone, there's rose gardens full of fairy roses, there are bookworms where the worms are like worms with a Y, and they're just little dragons that eat anything with words on them. There's just so many things that is making this town magical, and I love it. It's just, this is such a comforting read. I should read middle grade more often. This is fantastic. It's a lot later. Just roll with it. Now, I love me a fairy ring. You can see. She's just fucking fallen for one, hasn't she? She's just gone into a fucking fairy ring because she was looking for mushrooms. I could not tell you the last time I actually read about that in a book. Bonus point for this book. Bonus point. Hi, I look sleepy because I've just woken up and I haven't gotten dressed yet, but what I have done is I've finished Hedgewitch. So, overall I really enjoyed this book. This book has got the witchy rural English countryside vibes on point. There's enough intrigue and suspicion to keep the reader going throughout the book. I think it's a really interesting idea. I would definitely recommend this book. However, I have two caveats to that. The first one is there is not enough diversity in this book. This is a very whitewashed book. And now it was cleared up this is set sort of around early 20th century kind of time. And it is set in rural England, which is predominantly full of white people. I understand this, but this is a children's book. If you are writing books for children these days, I would expect to see more representation. I would expect to see more diversity so that more children can feel seen. I feel like this kind of sort of forest, fairy, witchcraft, sort of British mythology kind of magic can be quite whitewashed. And I think it's about time that we saw more representation in books with this theme. So that is my main qualm with this. My second qualm is much smaller, but so irritating. In this book, they use stones that are basically solar powered. They use sunlight to charge themselves, and then you can use these magical glowing stones like torches in the dark. Fantastic. Not a new concept, but like a handy dandy thing for a young witch to have when she is chasing goblins through caves. What I don't enjoy is that in this book they are called carbuncles. If you are not already aware, carbuncles are giant pus-filled boils that you get on your body. I could not find any reference on the internet to them being anything other than giant pus-filled boils. So I resent that they have that Skye McKenna has used this name, that term, to just be something completely different, because when they were talking about how they hold the carbuncles up lighter and the carbuncles were glowing red in their hands, I'm picturing pus-filled boils and I don't like it. So that was gross. That was my second qualm. I overall really did enjoy this, so I would recommend it. Even if you're an adult, like, as long as you're aware that it is written for children, like the protagonist is 13. It's a good story. It's an easy story. I like how little pressure I felt to read it. I needed a little bit of like a brain break, basically. That's what this is, and I needed it and I appreciated it, and I'm going to put it down now. This will be the last dedicated buzzword video, I have decided, because I will still be using buzzword to pick a library book that I've never heard of every month, but I'm going to talk about it in my sort of wrap up notables video rather than doing a vlog on its own. Partly because I feel pressured to only read this book when I am on my own and have time to film my reactions to it. It is a format I enjoy, but putting those restrictions on it just makes it, I feel pressured to do things that way, and I don't love it. There's only certain times when I can film in those scenarios because I share a house with my partner. So that's, yeah. The second thing is that these videos just don't do very well. And I can understand that because I am only talking in depth about one book that is probably not very popular, that probably not a lot of people have ever heard of. And because I'm often giving in the moment reactions on camera, they are quite garbled and they don't always make a lot of sense. So I will be, from May, absorbing my buzzword read into my March notables, so you'll still find out about it there, because I am really enjoying going to the library and just picking up a book I've never heard of once a month. Like, I think that's really refreshing, keeps me on my toes. It means I'm not always staring at the same TBR all the time and having to pick from that. So that's where we're at. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you would give this a go. I would recommend it. It does exactly what it says on the tin. There is going to be more in the series, but I don't think I'm not going to pressure myself. I'm not going to put this on my series tracker. If I feel like picking it up, I'm going to pick it up. But I think middle grade for me is going to be that genre where there is no pressure. I can pick it up if I need a little break, but I'm not tracking it. I'm not going to pin down series or feel pressured to finish series. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye!